Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of The Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio.
You see, I didn't even bother this time, did I?
I did notice that. I thought I gave you a pregnant pause to jump in there, but
I always let the team down, I feel, when I try.
oh no, not at all. It's the effort that we're looking for, Adam.
Just like life, hey.
Exactly. Success in life is about showing up. Today, we're talking about transitioning from founder to sales. We have a special guest, Paul Lloyd, to help us with the discussion. As the director of Sellerly, Paul brings over 30 years' experience in helping businesses strategically scale their sales operations. But before we bring Paul on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download a highly interactive experience, so audience participation is encouraged. All right, with that, Adam, would you kick us off, please?
I would be delighted to. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'll steal Tim's saying here because clearly it gives you the opportunity to follow up, Rob. I'm famous for writing the book Brilliant Social Media. I couldn't remember what the book was. It's so long ago that I wrote it. So Brilliant Social Media. And I'm delighted to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this session today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Bearded sales guy, Alex.
Hello, glad to be here. So yeah, Alex Abbott. I'm famous for being called the bearded sales guy. A fun fact about me, despite Adam advising me not to share or publicize this, I was born in Wales. And that came up in conversation before we went live because we were thinking about how diverse we weren't as a group. But then Rob pointed out that we're from different parts of the world. So I'm born in Wales. I live in Portugal. I'd love to know where everyone else is dialing in from.
Yaki Da.
Is that Welsh, Tim? What does it mean?
I can't remember.
Well, thank you for that, Alex. Tracy, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. My computer did not want to log in. I'm Tracy Boris, and I am just outside of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So diverse in that fact. And I am famous for wearing pink headphones.
Without the mic working properly.
Your mic's
no,
a bit
is it
funny.
not working? My technology is letting me down today. I'm going to try and fix my audio, and we can move on to Tim.
There we go. Thank you so much, and we're glad you did make it. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and founder of DLA Ignite, and I would just like to say, if Chris Grimes, you are still watching, just want to say hello to you. Maybe you can do a shout out or something. And I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Bertrand.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So my name is Bertrand Godillot. I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co. based in France, but I'm currently broadcasting from Casablanca, Morocco. So under pretty nice sunshine today. A bit windy, but really great weather.
You're on holiday, Bertrand?
No, I'm not. I'm working.
You're seeing his little brother.
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad we can do that. So we can work and at the same time enjoy the family, even though we are in a very different country. So
In all the LinkedIn lives in all the world, you had to walk into ours. There should be some kind of Casablanca quote here, shouldn't there?
Start a beautiful friendship.
Glad to be here anyway.
Excellent. And we're glad to have you here. Thank you so much. And myself, I am Rob Durant. I am the founder of Flywheel Results, and I'm famous for writing the book, The Social Enablement Blueprint. Stop pitching and start selling. Thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Hey, can I
As
do a
I-
quick mic check?
Where,
My
sorry,
mic
Tracy.
better?
Yeah,
I just wanted to do a mic
Much
check.
better.
Where can I get one of these, Rob?
You can get that at Amazon. You can also find us at socialenablement.pro. Thank you for that cheap plug.
That was an expensive plug. Just wait till you
It
get
really
the invoice, Rob.
was. As I said,
And Rob, the people on radio don't even know that I was holding a book up.
this is true, but now they do. We should have
We
narrated
need the
that.
little Tim and Adam hold up the book.
Right, right.
Audio description, yeah.
Maybe we need to get a narrator.
Yeah, yes, we do. I have lost control already. This week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Paul Lloyd. With decades of hands-on experience and a track record of driving significant growth, Paul has guided numerous businesses through this transition. His approach combines practical advice with proven strategies to help you elevate your sales performance. Let's bring him on. Paul, good
Hey,
morning and welcome.
Oh,
good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Paul, let's
I'm not-
start by. Oh,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I'm not famous for anything. But I
Paul,
do
if
have
you're
a-
on this show for long enough, you figure out something that you're famous for.
But Paul, the
But I do
good
have a
thing,
Welsh name.
but Paul, the good thing is that you're the person that bought all the books that we've written.
Nearly all of
He's
them.
the one.
You need to get another one in the set.
Oh, is that what it is?
Tim is currently holding up Rob Durant's book.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I'm speaking from the south of England, from a 15th century cottage, real beams for those that.
Nice.
And the
Do
sunny
you have
time.
do you have a grass roof or a
I do
slate
have a
roof?
grass roof.
You have a grass roof.
Well, I have a grass roof actually, but yes.
Grass.
Well, it's actually reed. It's not straw, so it's
Is it not? So mine is long straw. Yours is water reed, is it?
yeah. So mine's reed.
Hmm.
And apparently it burns very well. My son works in the insurance game. He works with high net worth individuals, and they refer to thatched houses as tinderboxes. So, and I can't get insurance through him.
Yeah, it's increasingly a struggle as time goes by, and there have been a number of house fires around us, so it's always a bit scary.
There's about 60,000 in the country.
wow.
Not fires, but thatched.
But Paul is also an apiarist.
And he's also an apiarist.
Yeah,
What's
All right, you're going to have to define that.
I keep bees.
he keeps bees.
Oh, okay.
Although I recently moved, so at the moment I don't have any bees because with the weather we haven't sort of bothered investing this year as of yet. But my plan is that I'll have probably 6 or 7 hives by the end of the year.
Right, so you're a fan of honey, I take it.
We do like honey, yes.
Mm.
I'm just a fan of bees. They're just magic. You know, they're sort of fascinating, and they've been doing it for thousands upon thousands of years. So.
Well,
Here we are.
let's kick this off by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to where you are today.
I started operating mainframes when I first left school. So I worked in a time when you loaded tapes like the James Bond films. The James Bond films are the little tapes that do that, and the tapes go up and down. So I worked around there. Then I became a swimming pool attendant. So I spent a couple of years. Sorry?
A lifeguard.
A lifeguard, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advantages to being a lifeguard when you're a young chap. So I did that, and I did a number of management qualifications. So essentially, I ended up running sort of leisure centres for local authorities. Anybody that knows me would know that working for local authorities and councillors and the like doesn't really fit well with me. So I didn't do that for a massive length of time. And then I moved into selling, at the time, PCs. So I started in the channel probably just before there was one. And throughout, I guess, 30 odd years now, I've worked in big companies, little companies. I've sold enterprise and SME. I've managed upwards of 70 salespeople and downwards to 2, and everything in between. So where I work these days tends to be within the MSP space, because there are lots of technical people who have started businesses, who've grown, and they've done the recommendation and referral piece, and they've now got to the point where
Tim has put his hand up.
they get to the point where they can't go any further.
Paul, what's an
without-
MSP?
Oh, I do apologise. A managed service provider.
Okay,
You
and
would understand.
what's an MSC? Is that medium, small enterprise or something?
SME being small,
SME.
medium enterprise. It's obviously my dodgy accent or a dodgy microphone. So I tend to work with smaller businesses, or it may be that they've got a small sales team, but they don't know how to manage it, or they don't know how to direct it. And so I offer a sort of a virtual sales director type role. So I'll sort of help and coach from the outside, some mentoring, some coaching, sometimes doing the job. So, but all from a sort of a top-down type of approach. I tend not to get involved in the kind of sharp-end sales training, because it bores me to some extent, I guess. But I mean, it's fascinating. So I've got some big clients, but generally speaking, they're quite small. You'd understand MSP services as outsourcing. Us old people know it as outsourcing.
Let's kick off today's discussion with a foundational question. For the founder transitioning into sales, what are the key steps in transitioning from a founder to a sales-focused leader?
Mindset.
Mindset.
I think that the hardest part, in many respects, the hardest part of what I do is to get them to start to think about achieving a number and perhaps just getting there. So, when they run their businesses as it is at the moment, and they get recommendation and referrals, and if they don't get any, they're reasonably happy with it, because it grows over time. So many of them have been in business for 10 years and they've added 3 or 4 clients a year, and now they're doing $1.5 million or whatever it happens to be. But when you start talking to them about they want to grow, and you say, well, you're going to have a plan, and now we've got numbers, and we've got to go from here, and we've got to reach those numbers, which means we have to do something. And that's a concept that they don't necessarily grasp the first time.
So, Paul, I have a question, and I might be jumping ahead because I tend to do that. But from a mindset perspective versus like sales skills perspective, because I think a lot of people who create businesses to fill a gap in an industry may not identify as a salesperson. So in your experience, would you say it is more about the mindset and or a specific mindset, or sales skills?
I think initially it's more of a mindset, because what they've done is they've grown their business. A lot of them, they've been made redundant. They've got some technical skills. They know somebody who needs some help, who knows somebody who needs some help, and they put that together. And then they go and the first recruit tends to be an engineer, which really it shouldn't be. It should be somebody in admin to do all the other bits of work. But they take on an engineer, and they grow through recommendation and referral. And then when they then want to grow what I would class as deliberately, so I have a tendency to sort of start looking at selling deliberately rather than waiting for it to happen to you. And when you start that, there is sales process involved, but I genuinely don't think at that stage it's a clever, this sort of clever sales. It's a process to get them used to the idea of moving things through a pipeline and winning business, then they add their first salesperson, and then once you get into one or two of those, then the salespeople will obviously need some training. But in terms of getting the structure right to be able to do that, it's the bit that they all miss. They just think, give them a desk, give them a chair, or give them access to Google, and they'll go and bring us some business. Because I don't like that. So.
Is it that many of these leaders have probably not been in sales themselves?
Well, that's fundamentally the issue. Is that I was saying to Rob before we started, certainly in the UK, sales is the job you do when you can't get a proper job. So a lot of these people, they're technical, and everybody can sell, can't they? Everybody can sell when it's recommendation and referral, but when it comes to actually having to do it to achieve a number, or whatever that is, whatever those targets are, then it's a different game, and they haven't done it. They've started as techies, they've grown up through techies, they've probably done some pre-sales technical support, and anybody who's been out with pre-sales technical support people will know that they think they're doing all the job anyway.
Which is true.
They all want to be salespeople when somebody else is doing all the hard graft for them. But to actually do that themselves is, a lot of them don't want to, because they don't like sales. I spoke to a group of these sort of small technical businesses a while ago, and they all start talking about sales recruitment. And he said, well, your biggest problem is you don't like salespeople. You don't answer the phone to salespeople. You don't do anything that you want your salespeople to be doing with other people. So you've got to get over that hurdle to start with, and then build a structure and a framework such that you can get salespeople to be successful within it.
So when you say they've got to get over that hurdle, do you mean you've got to get your salespeople to do something else that they might like, that the customer might like, or they have to just keep on ploughing on regardless, irrespective of whether the customer likes it or not?
I think that you need to be in control of the sales process, and there's lots of inevitably there's lots of people selling lots of books with all sorts of fluffy stuff in, but fundamentally what we need people to have a constructive conversation with people with a problem, and I think in this day and age then we can do everything that we used to do in sort of 10 or 15 minutes, and with the advent of social and the various sort of softer approaches to people to find prospects, I don't think it's any easier, but the tools that we're using are far more efficient. But it's consistency is the bit that they don't understand. It's I sat in a room full of these people the other evening, and they're talking. They've all got the same problem. They can't sell things, and unless somebody goes and asks for it fundamentally. And you say, well, you need to be doing your social work, you need to be doing some emails, you need a newsletter, you need all these things to be touching people regularly. I said, well, we've done that, we've tried that, and it didn't work. How long did you try it? Well, we've done it once. We've had a LinkedIn newsletter 3 times, and nobody's phoned me and ordered anything, so that doesn't work. Well, it's time. Your enemy is time, isn't it? In the sales environment, your enemy is time. So, but they don't get it, because technically, I think if you're a technically biased person and something that you've got doesn't work, you try and fix it. If the first thing that you do to fix it doesn't work, you don't do that same thing again. You'll try something else. If that doesn't work, you try something else. And I say to them, look, I can send an email, or it could be a post on LinkedIn. I can do the same post every day and get a completely different response every single day. And it might fall flat for the first 4 days, and somebody give me an order on the 5th. But it's exactly the same. And that whole concept, they don't grasp, because they don't think that way. But we're psychologically at either end of a continuum, aren't we?
Well, and I think so. Paul, I didn't cover this in my intro, but my background is marketing. So I see like what you're talking about with email and stuff all the time. And I think this is why I appreciate that you started with mindset, because there's the mindset that people don't know how to do marketing or they don't know how to do sales. And so if you're going into these types of activities and you're like, well, I'm just no good at marketing, it's not going to work, right? The results are going to match the mindset that you bring to that. And so I'd love to explore, because I'm sure you've had like different clients who've been successful with different things. So what type of things can people try as they're going through this exercise to figure out like what does work for me as a founder from a sales perspective, which might be different than what works for a different founder over there?
I think, I'm not sure that it is. I think the context is different. And, you know, and I'm old and therefore fortunate that I've worked in lots of different aspects of the industry. And as a consequence, then I can generally contextualize things. And I think one of the problems with all the experts in the world is that there tends to be no context. So, you know, I think when you're actually going through it, there's a set of things. If you want to build a sales team, you want to build a sales structure, there's a few things that you need to get in place before you put salespeople in it. So, you know, some of it is marketing. I mean, I tend to look at marketing with a small m rather than the colouring in book sort of end of it. But so getting your sales story right and understanding where you're going to sell and what your target market is and talking in their language and all those sorts of things have to be done. And then you're plugging in the salespeople into that to give them half a chance of being successful. Now, there's nuances around that, because if you're selling complex solutions, I mean, most of the people I deal with are selling outsourced services or managed services, which for all intents and purposes is a complex solution. So there's a little bit more involved in that rather than 50 laptops or 50 desktops or whatever it happens to be.
So you mentioned a sales story. Can I ask you to tell us more what you mean about that? How can a business develop a targeted sales story in a sales process?
The way that I do it and is built around the sales story itself is built around why do your clients deal with you? So, if somebody says to you, what do you do? You're not telling them what you do, you're telling them why people deal with you. And then looking at the pains and issues that you solve for that client. So, and I've got a template which I want to say I stole out of a book by Mike Weinberg, but essentially,
he doesn't watch the show, Paul. So
well, he might do if I'm on it.
Touché.
But so I've got this structure which is a simple intro. People deal with me because. So in my case, IT companies deal with me when they become an accidental sales manager, and what do I offer? And a series of and then I can from that structure I can do an introductory email, and it's an internal document. So if I've got people join me, I can give it to them and they can do an introductory email because they know the 4 or 5 main, I don't like pain points, but the sort of issues that people have, and they know the 4 or 5 unique selling points of your organization, but it's in the language of the client. So if you're talking to accountants, it's in a language that accountants use. If you're talking to lawyers, then it's in the language of lawyers or whatever it happens to be, so that they resonate with you. And then everything you do across the various platforms today just reflect that story. So if that's tight and neat, then you're in a much better position that people are going to be able to deliver for you, because they they don't have to think, but they've got the weapons to be able to go out and deliver on your behalf.
Which also enables marketing to tell the same story. I like this.
Indeed.
And when you say target market, Paul, what do you mean by that?
If I was American, I'd call it a niche. And
if you were American, you'd call it a niche.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
If you're Canadian, you'll call it a niche.
If I was an American, I'd call it a niche. If lots of people refer to it as a niche, I tend to look at it as a target market, just simply because I can then explain it more and they haven't got a preconceived idea. But fundamentally, it's a focus, isn't it? It's just having a focus on a particular area of the market. So it could be as simple as accountants. So we deal with accountants. It could be a particular technology. So, I had a client at one point whose specialism was dealing with large data files. So what we then did was we found companies that needed large data files. We built a list of 400 or 500 companies that we could identify with the right size, in the right place, had the right issues, and then we just simply go to those 500 over and over again, rather than sort of spraying thousands upon thousands of people once. We've got 500 people that will deliver to on a regular basis, but actually focus in on it. So I'm fortunate. I actually won one of the first national supply agreements in the UK for the NHS. So we actually built a team selling to the NHS, and I created I actually called it NHS Direct before there was an NHS Direct, which doesn't mean anything to anybody who's not in the UK. But we have a service now in the UK called NHS Direct, and I used to have a phone number 30 years ago that was NHS Direct, and we used to do a regular email, but we could talk to them in their own language. We could talk about people that they knew, who they were within that community. And then I built a team selling to building societies, and we didn't have any building society specialism, but we had a case study, and we wrote a list of all the building societies, and we went and talked to them in their own language about the things that they were interested in. And it's that focus that makes it successful. It takes a little bit more time.
Isn't the challenge, though, that you go to talk to somebody in their own language, but they're not listening? And the reason they're not listening is that there's 1,000 other companies that want to talk to them in their own language, that claim to be top quartile in performance, or customer focused, or absolutely putting the customer, or having these unique attributes, or being market leading and having case studies that look just like their company. And you're just another person that's banging on the door, and they're not listening. And the challenge is getting them to listen, isn't it?
I think so, but I don't think there are all those people that focus and do that piece of it. Lots of people talk about it, and too many people have too broad a market to go to, or they're doing it in it's not honed, would be a good word.
That's certainly true, but the challenge is that you write something which absolutely is designed to resonate with me as a insert niche that I'm in there. So that's the person. So you write something that absolutely is designed to resonate with people like me, and there are loads of people in that group. There's 6 of them on the call. So that's your target market. But the challenge is that I only know that your communication resonates with me when I've read it, and I'm not going to read it because I'm too busy. Why the hell would I read your thing? Because I don't know who you are. You're just another person saying words to me. It's like when you go onto LinkedIn, or you open your email, or you go to any kind of website that has banner advertising on it. Everybody claims to have the solution to solve your problem. And the challenge invariably is, I like that, Rob, with you being the large image.
The person who's talking not on the screen at all.
Yeah, that's a win when it's me speaking, I know. But the challenge is breaking through the noise and the barriers that people have. Because, Tim tried to sell me something, and he said, I am absolutely the person that can help solve this problem. And then 2 minutes later, I had Alex phoning me up, and Alex said, I'm the person that can solve your problem, and I'm better than all of my competitors. And then I had a call from Bertrand, and Bertrand said, I can solve your, and actually everyone's saying the same thing. And there's this commoditized value. No salesperson ever reaches out and says, we're second best, we're a little bit slow, we're not always dependable, and we're a bit expensive. Every salesperson says they're market leading and best, and they can dress it in the words that resonate with me. But isn't the challenge today to be in an environment where there's 1,000 people selling what appears to be the same service. And it may be that it's a different service, but I'm not sophisticated enough to know whether your product is better than Alex's. Isn't the challenge to get me to consume your content these days?
I mean, I guess so, but I think if you're building your profile and you're getting the right things in the right place, then, you know, if you're lucky, they're coming to you. But when it comes down to it, I'm not going to approach you and say I'm the best. I'm going to approach you and say that my understanding from the research I've done around you is you have these following issues. We've got things that fix that. So, you know, let's have a sensible conversation. But that's not going to be the first time I call. You know, that's going to be built up over a period of time by using all of the various tools and approaches that I've got available to me. Now, you know, when I started, I started in enterprise sales. So my niche was 12 accounts. I had a target list of 12 accounts, and my job was to sell to them, not 13, 12. And, you know, most of those had got suppliers, and you built a reputation. So you would speak to them, you'd go to events where they were at, you'd be in a position where you had to do research around them, you'd speak to their vendors, and you know, from time to time I'd clip things out of the Sunday Times business page and stick it on a compliment slip and print an envelope. So all those sorts of things I would be doing all the time, and that would take me days. I can do all that now in 15 minutes. But when I talk to you, I know so much about you that if I've done that work, then you are going to relate to me because I'm saying the right things, and people want to buy from people like them, don't they?
That's the point that I'm driving at. The point is that
I got it right then, did I?
No, but the point is that in a world where everything is commoditized, so we work with some very large tech vendors, and they would be the first to admit that their product is not differentiated from their competitor's product in the marketplace. So some of them have got a blue button, some have got a red button, some have got a green button, but they've all got a button and it does ostensibly the same thing. And the challenge that they have is that they add bolt-ons, they add new functionality, they add new connectors, as does everybody else. And it's a race to nowhere, particularly because in most cases the customer is relatively unsophisticated in terms of what it is that they're buying. That's why they're buying from you rather than building it themselves. Certainly they don't understand the minutiae. The mistake that everybody that's a specialist in something thinks is that the thing that people are buying is the little veneer of brilliance that they have over and above everyone else. And actually, it's often not the case. And the only differentiator is you.
Yeah, I think that's right. But vendors aren't very good at selling things, are they? The problem with vendors, and obviously some vendors deal directly with their end users, but in my experience of vendors through largely indirect sales is that they've got to sell product and clients buy outcomes. And somebody in the middle has to translate the product into an outcome. And the vendors have to sell more and more and more products. They're not really interested in what the end user's using them for, as long as they're buying them.
That's true.
So
one of the things I always think about, I'm a big fan of farmers markets. And so I think about going to a farmers market, and there's tons of vendors, and there's vendors selling lots of different things, but there's also lots of vendors selling the same things, right? So if you go to a farmers market, there's probably multiple people selling fruit, or multiple people selling honey, or multiple people selling what you sell. Sometimes you get the artisans that can craft something that's pretty unique, but generally there's someone who's selling pretty much the same jewelry as the person right across the way. But there's something else. There's something that draws you to a specific booth. And Paul, you like honey, and so maybe you are drawn to the honey booths, maybe to buy, but maybe even just to assess what are they doing that I'm not doing, or how are we competitive? But we all as individual consumers have that experience that we're going to resonate with specific people selling specific things, and we are not going to resonate with other people. So one of the things, because we're kind of talking around this point a bit, but I I'd love to just talk briefly about the concept of almost like if you are farmers market booth, like inviting people in versus like persuading people to buy, right? Because I think like if I don't like honey, doesn't matter how hard you persuade me to buy honey, I'm not going to buy honey. Right? I don't want honey. I actually really like honey. It's a bad example. But like, you can't convince me. You can't convince me to come and taste your jerky if I'm a vegetarian.
But what you have to do then is you've got to present it in a way that resonates with you, which is essentially, I guess is what I'm saying here, isn't it? Is that your language has to address your target market. So if your target market is, again, use accountants as an example, then you've got, if you're using an accountant's language and you're putting out things there that are benefits. So, I mean, I'm not sure it is a good example necessarily, but I'm doing something with a client at the moment where everybody's talking about AI and everybody's talking about Copilot and all these things, but nobody's talking about what it does, what benefit is. It's all AI. Everybody's got something now. And so we've recently done a video with, you do these jobs. There's a list of long and hard, sort of boring jobs that accountants do. So you're doing this, you can't be happy doing that. So why, we can use Copilot to make it look like this and make those jobs go away. And that's an outcome. Now, if you see that, then you're more likely to come across, to us rather than the kind of Microsoft buy Copilot, buy Copilot. And if you're selling honey, it attracts a certain demographic, or it's ladies rather than gentlemen, or whatever it happens to be. But it's having the words to attract the market that you want to be, rather than trying to be all things to all people.
Can I pick up on some of the comments, please?
Please do.
Yeah. So Nikki Russell says, for me, sales was about overcoming objections. Samira says, hi, everyone. I hope I got the message correctly. I just joined to your event. I was sales manager for 10 years. And in my opinion, the crucial factor in sales is trust and believing on what you sell. She goes on to say, if they don't even listen, means they don't trust us. And she also says, and also information and knowledge in the area we are active on is crucial. We have to know the products in our field so they listen to us. After all, they notice we are knowledgeable. And Nikki comes back and says, it's more about building a trusting relationship. You are partnering with them, not being transactional. If you know that they are going to be by your side, grinding with them until they reach success, they are more open to connecting further for business purposes. That's why with sales, it's a process with multiple outreach messages or referral and recommendations. Thank you.
I think there's a theme in almost all of those that I'd like to pick up that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, Paul, is this creation of trust before the creation of like a trusted advisor, right? So I think a lot of times salespeople are like, yeah, I know this and I know it more than you, right? You should trust me because I know it more than you. And we show up, and from a marketing perspective, a lot of this is about educating. I'm using air quotes for those people who are listening on the radio. Educating people on like what we do and how they need to fix their problem. But I think this trust component comes first. So, and at the beginning, we were even talking about like referrals and things like that. And all of that's a trust-based relationship. So what are some things people can do to create this trust so that people listen to them, so that they know they are knowledgeable and can help them fix their problem?
I think a lot of that, I mean, in this day and age, a lot of that comes from your social proof and your social media presence, and people being able to learn so much about you, as a company or as an individual before you get to that stage, and listen. Just listen. I guess from a sales perspective, often there's an arrogance in terms of I'm going to tell you rather than I'm going to listen. But I think in this day and age, I think the world's turned a bit, and people have problems. They can do lots of research for themselves. You listen to what they've got to say, and and if they're right, they're right. If they need some help, they need some help. But I think it becomes it's a two-way street, isn't it? in the 50s, we would have wanted to bang, sort of bang things out and close it off. Today, we want an ongoing relationship with people. So we've got to do it properly, and we've got to be honest and upfront and look for social proof. I mean, a recommendation, the process of a recommendation is somebody comes to me and says, who do you use to do your IT support? So the first thing they would do is they make a judgment on my ability to actually make a referral. So if I've referred somebody who's naff in the past, then they're not going to want to do that. But then they have a requirement, because otherwise they wouldn't be asking for a referral. So when it gets as far as the client or the company that I'd refer them to, they've got some social proof because I've recommended them. They know that the prospect has a requirement, because otherwise they wouldn't have been asking, and they're halfway there. So our job, from a cold hard selling point of view, is to get to that stage. So it's information, it's relevant information, it's delivering, and being that. To my mind, it's going that extra mile, and getting people to rely on, trust. People will trust if you earn it, don't they? I mean,
I get the impression founders are really good at building trust because they've got deep knowledge, and they have something of value to say, and when they open their mouth, especially if they've been doing the thing that they do for many years, they're talking to their target audience, and their target audience is kind of interested in what they have to say. But then that challenge is scaling the business from.
But they're also very passionate about it, aren't they? Now, if you can't sell your own business, and it's passion and it's excitement and it's every client that you've got, everything you've done for them, all the reasons that they deal with you. You've got your 4 a.m. story. It's what is it? It's 2:45 on a Friday afternoon, and my major client phoned me because everything had gone down. We were all looking forward to go to the pub at 5 o'clock because the sun was shining, but everybody took their jackets off, and we worked all weekend, and we got it all up and running, and everybody was happy. And all those sorts of things that are what I try and get them then to kind of bottle and be able to pass on to people that join them, because nobody's going to sell with the same level of passion your business as you do.
No. And then the challenge, that chasm that they have to cross, I think, listening to some of the conversation about messaging and then arming other people, let's say salespeople, with that message, they don't have the same level of passion as the founder. And so if you think about how things have changed over the years, and to Adam's point, is tapping into an individual's personality and their authenticity that is going to open the door. And I think listening to some of the comments or reading some of the comments here from Nikki and Samira, it's that trust, isn't it?
But I think this is also interesting, Alex, because if a founder can speak very passionately about the business and why it exists, and I think that also, while a salesperson is like now an arm's reach, right? They're not the creator of that. But I think when we have the opportunity to share that kind of story, it allows us to attract salespeople who are more aligned, and therefore those like differences in the personal brands are actually end up not being as scary, because you're like, okay, well, this person is equally bought into what we're doing here. They're going to go out and sell it. They're going to go out and sell it their way. I, as the founder, I'm going to go out and sell it my way. But these two ways are compatible, and they build a funnel together. And I think that's one of the greatest opportunities about this sales story, is that we're aligned on it. It doesn't sound identical, but we can attract the right sales resources as well.
That same level of meaning, I think it's got to mean something to that individual,
right.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
And I can't remember which of the comments had mentioned it, but like I think it was Samira saying you have to believe in what you're selling. and I've seen that happen from a like sales hiring perspective. Is you get somebody who has 20 years of experience in sales, but they are used to selling heavy equipment, and now they're selling software as a service, and they're not passionate about the solution. So can they sell? Absolutely, they can sell. They have a great track record of selling. But selling something you care about or you have deep knowledge in is different than selling something to sell something.
Tracy, you said something profound there, and I don't know that you realized it. They have to be passionate about their solution. They don't have to be passionate about their construction services or their IT services or their waste management services. I mean, really, when you think about it, I would have a hard time being passionate about waste management. But I could absolutely be passionate about the desired end state that I can deliver to my customers through whatever solution it is I'm presenting. And I think that's what gets lost with salespeople in general. And I would dare venture to say founders in particular. Paul, what is your experience with technical founders in that regard?
I agree with you. And that when it comes down to it, it's all about an outcome. People are buying outcomes, and the difficulty with the sort of the more technical founder is they're selling technology because that's what they know. So they'll spurt out language. I mean, I've done this for 30 years, and I sat down with in a workshop a couple of weeks ago with somebody, and we looked at the sales story, and I said, so what do you do? And this bloke talked at me for about 4 minutes, and I didn't understand a word he said. And I'm saying, well, if I don't understand it, you can bet your life, your end users don't understand it. So it's using that language, and because they think they know it, then in many cases they're not prepared to listen. They're telling, because this is what I've done, and this is my service, my product, and this is what you're going to have. So there's an education piece in that, in terms of just getting them to understand that people are buying outcomes. The old adage of people buy from people, but fundamentally they're buying outcomes, and listen to what people are saying, because they may or may not be wrong. But listen and then explain, and take a little time and trouble to explain, because the more you do that, the more you become a trusted advisor. The more that you listen and the more sort of effort you put into it. But it comes down to that mindset, doesn't it? I mean, to some extent, it's we all buy outcome. When I started in it, people would buy new kit if there was a new processor, because they wanted it to be a bit quicker, or they wanted something. But today, it's not like that. We all have issues, and we've all got problems, pains within the businesses. How do we make those go away? Is the outcome, and every one of those is slightly different.
The word that comes to mind as you were describing that is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Is technical prowess compatible with empathy?
I think it depends who you're selling to. If you're selling to IT directors or heavily technical people, then obviously you can have empathy. With normal people, it's more difficult. It has to be, I suppose it has to be learned in some respects. But
one of the things that I think was really good, at least strikes me, is obviously we buy outcome. I agree with that, but at the same time, it seems that it's more and more customers are looking for a sales rep free process. So I think before you get the opportunity to actually sell the outcome, you first need to be allowed to.
I think there's also like something there. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Is that why? So people are being polled. Lots of people are saying they don't want to talk to a sales rep until 70 whatever way through the process. But like, why is that? And like, because there's things that I buy, like I will not buy a car without talking to a sales rep, right? Like I want to talk to a person who knows more about the car than I do, then I'm going to test drive it, then there's a further process. But there's things we always buy with reps, and there are people who are even in the digital space who use a trusted advisor, and they may not know that they're like, they may not identify them as a salesperson at that point, but we use trusted advisors to build our knowledge and to make decisions. And so I think it's just an interesting phenomenon. And then I would love to hear Paul answer Bertrand's question, but I think partially that's because we've had salespeople doing really sketchy activities that aren't adding value for people. So if we have salespeople who are not doing those things, but instead are doing meaningful things that are helping people, then I don't think people mind dealing with sales.
And to be honest, that was the second part of the question is, what's the role of artificial intelligence, which seems to be, spreading all over the sales process. So, Paul, what's your take?
I think Tracy's hit it on the head there with adding value. People will meet you, people will talk to you if you're adding value. If all you're doing is going in and asking them questions about themselves and hunting products, then that has no real value. So they're avoiding conversations with the sales team because it's not adding any value. If we're very busy, if you've got, when I was important, I had quite a large job with lots of people. I hadn't got time to talk to idiot salespeople that wanted to spend 20 minutes having me tell them about my business, because I wanted them to come in and tell me about my business and how they could help me. And so, if you're not adding value, you're a cost. And I think in a lot of cases, people are looking at driving those costs out. Now, in terms of artificial intelligence, some of the processes will go, but we have to adapt what we're doing to add that value in that process. And that's it's content, it's advice, it's webinars with education, it's a whole raft of things to be able to help them make that decision. And if you can't help them, so if let's be fair, if you wanted to buy 50 laptops this afternoon, you'd go on the internet and you'd find the cheapest price for 50 laptops, because nobody could. The salesperson's not going to add any value to that if you know what you want. But if you wanted them connected to a network in 50 different places around the world, that becomes a different proposition. And so it's really structuring the whole thing to address your market and the people that you would like to buy your stuff. But it's, I genuinely don't think it's like it was 20 years ago when you had to drive, constantly driving it out, because we are in a world where people are looking, and just because they think they know what they want doesn't actually mean that they do know what they want when they get as far as you. So if you know your market, if you know the problems and the issues that you solve, and you can have a sensible conversation, then you're more of the way there, aren't you?
Paul, I have a kind of a little bit different question just to sneak in at the end here.
No,
because
sorry, Tracy. We're running out of time.
I know. I think it will be quick. I think it will be quick because I think it's going to be a one-word answer. That's why I'm sneaking it in. So for people who have been in a sales role and have created their own business and now have to go back into a sales role, but maybe they have different sales structures or different sales strategies because they were doing what someone else told them to before, and now they can do their own thing. Do you have any quick advice for those people in terms of reframing sales for themselves?
I think it's quite difficult for anybody that has worked in a company with structure to go out and start by themselves. But I think it would always be build your framework, build your process, get all of your sort of collateral in terms of standard emails and content and everything ready, and case studies and all that stuff ready, so that you've got all the answers when you're out in the field talking. And obviously we're all doing an element of marketing, aren't we, these days? So that's important, and it is different to it was 10 years ago. So if you're doing exactly the same as you were 10 years ago, then you're likely as not going to be moving forwards.
Rob.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. How can people learn more? How can they get in touch with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. So Paul Lloyd. My website is cellularly.co.uk, and if they, people want to email me, it's just paul@cellularly.co.uk. So I make it as easy as I possibly can. In the UK, I would be disappointed if I didn't come up. If you put Paul Lloyd into LinkedIn and I wasn't the first one, if you're in the IT world, I would be very disappointed. But
Got it.
I do put a lot of effort into that.
We now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. Scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live and click on newsletter. On
Paul.
behalf of, pardon?
Sorry, just to confirm, you were the first one. I just typed your name into LinkedIn.
Oh, so did I, and he was, yes.
There we go. On behalf of the panelists, to our guest, to our audience, thank you all, and we'll see you next time on the Digital